then move to vote on this change in parking regulations. May I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
And this we need a roll call for.
Councilwoman Fontanes?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Nathan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Souza is absent. Councilman Stacks?
Yep.
Mayor Cohn?
Yes. Okay, members of the public may be heard. And we have one sign-in, Jerry Seitz.
Good evening, Jerry Seitz, 141 Kirby. First, I'd like to congratulate the Gang of Four, and I just regret the fact that there aren't more people here, but I would like to everybody give them a round of applause for withdrawing their lawsuit and also stepping up to the plate and paying their own legal fees. Next, question for you, Greg, is what does this cost us? We've had obvious, and you may not have the numbers available now, and you can get them to us later, but we've had legal fees for the Board of Ethics. We've had legal fees presumably for you, legal fees for Kristen, because I assume that the city did honor their commitments under the state law and give you counsel.
Jerry, obviously to your point, I don't have a number off the top of my head with everything.
Plenty of time.
But there was the authorization by the council was to authorize not to exceed $45,000 for legal expense. I don't know. I mean, I can certainly provide.
There's no rush. We can do it next time.
Okay.
Next, I want to go to the June 16th meeting, and one of the things that we've all seen, of course, is the letter from Josh Cohn describing the decision by the Gang of Four to give up their claims against the city. And attached to that was an exhibit from NICOM, which was not signed by NICOM. It was not on NICOM letterhead. The obvious question then is, tell us more about that, but we'll come to that in a moment, Josh. But I want to go back to June 16 and exactly what happened. June 16, as you recall, City Council called a special meeting to address the issue of whether or not essentially whether or not the Gang of Four could, albeit the city's laws preclude them from voting on a matter where they have a economic issue, and the city's laws are very clear on that. They said they should recuse themselves. However, recognizing that if they were to recuse themselves, the other three members of the council, who for these purposes, rather than addressing them by name, why don't we simply call them the Honorable Company, would vote against them. They chose to figure out a way to make themselves out of the issue. And so what they did was they said, the rules of recusal do not apply to us. We're special. And what they then did, having identified the fact that they were special, they went forward and they passed legislation which permitted them then to be reimbursed for their fees. And that, of course, was a second motion, again carried 4-3 by the Gang of Four as against the Honorable Company. So my questions are several. One, and interestingly enough, when you take a look at what the NICOM came out with, NICOM said, in pertinent part, they addressed the issue of recusal. In Josh Cohn's letter, Cohn acknowledges the fact that he and the Gang of Four have been in contact with NICOM. So I think it's fair to ask exactly what was the substance of those conversations. Now, what we also know is that, as evidenced in the letter, there was reference to Carolina Johnson saying, well, we are now going to go forward and deal with coming up with a revision to the Code of Ethics, because that goes back to the 1960s. In fact, when you take a look at the city's Code of Ethics, a bunch of the provisions in there, including the provisions as to conflict of interest have occurred in the last 10 years. So basically, there were just errors in the statement made by the Gang of Four. You also have a situation where the Gang of Four initiated its litigation on the grounds that what the Board of Ethics put forward, their advisory opinion, was in violation of the law. Take a look at 1513, Josh, and you'll find that the Board of Ethics is supposed to publish their letters or their advisory opinions. Now, when Carolina Johnson says, well, we're going to go through the process and we're going to do all this, my own very strong feeling is that the Gang of Four has already identified exactly what it is that they're going to propose. And what they propose will be one which will present to the world at large the fact that, quotes, we were right. Perfectly able to. When you take a look at what the provision in the NICOM said.
Jerry, you're way over time.
Okay, you'll have a chance to talk.
You are done talking. Please.
No, I'm not. Recusal should not be required when it would prohibit a majority of a decisional panel from acting.
Jerry,
the
you
Gang
can't
of
take
Four
over the meeting.
As a majority.
Jerry,
Josh, you are wrong.
Okay, thank you for that.
Good, thank you. The last thing I will say is we've got election coming up. And I think the question you should all of the city should ask the candidates, one simple question. And that question is this: on June 16, would you have voted with the Gang of Four or with the other three? And if the answer is not, I would have voted with the other three, I would recommend you do not vote for that person, because the honorable company, I think, has acted properly. Thank you. Josh, you're free to talk.
Mr. Mayor,
But one last thing. Again, congratulations on withdrawing. I think you did the right thing.
I think everyone's happy that the lawsuit has been dismissed. I would like one clarification. I think in your press release in dismissing the lawsuit, there was a reference to a NICOM official ethics guidance, and there's a document that was in the paper, and it's headed New York Conference of Mayors and Municipal Officials Ethics Guidance, August 2nd, 2023. So I've had a lot of questions about this as to whether or not this is an official NICOM document. What is this document? It's not signed by anybody. Perhaps you would like to give a little bit of color around the document.
If people are concerned about it, we'll go back to the NICOM General Counsel and ask him to put it on letterhead or over a name.
So it's not. Who created this document?
It's NICOM.
NICOM created the document?
Yes.
Who created it, NICOM?
I believe Wade Beltramo and John Mancini.
So they created this document, but they didn't sign it?
They presented it in exactly that form.
So they presented this document to you?
Mm-hmm.
And what was the basis for them creating this document?
Extended conversations.
So you had extended conversations with them?
Yeah, we were inquiring, like, how are we doing? What did we do wrong? Where did we miss? How is this happening? How do we understand this process? Where are our failings? How is the BOE, where are the city's failings? Where are the code's failures? So that's
And based
inquiring.
on those conversations, the General Counsel of NICOM gave you this document?
I believe it came through counsel John Mancini, who is principally responsible for ethics.
So he prepared this document?
Mm-hmm.
And he came up with all the topics in this document?
Those were the topics that were the subject of conversation over an extended period of time.
And so he summarized these topics.
Mm-hmm.
This was his document.
This was his document. He sent that document to us.
So I'm really confused. That's not the answer I expected to Councilman Henderson's question. I read your first. I second Jerry's. Excuse me. I'm so confused. I second Jerry's cites. Congratulations on withdrawing the suit and all of that. And the city is better for it. And I really am looking forward to moving forward and doing the business of the city and governing as we're supposed to do. I read the statements you made in the paper, and you're absolutely welcome to make those statements. And I firmly believe in that. And there are different opinions on the way different things happen. And everyone is entitled to those opinions, and that's all fine. But I was puzzled by the document. And I read the heading of the document, New York Conference of Mayors and Municipal Officials Ethics Guidance, August 2nd, 2023. And I clicked on it, and I looked at it, and it looked odd. And I called NYCOM, and I spoke to John Mancini. And I spoke to Wade, and I spoke to the executive director of NYCOM. And they confirmed the following. One, NYCOM does not issue opinions on specific matters. There was no analysis of the Board of Ethics opinion or the facts of this case. The items in that document are general principles. The second thing they said is, we did not write this document. John Mancini said, I did not write that document. I saw the document. I did not write it. Those are not my words. This is the document that they understood you prepared after conversations that you had with members of NYCOM, that those are your words, your summary, your interpretation, which is fine for you to take notes and fine for you to circulate your notes, but identify them as your notes, your summary. John Mancini also confirmed that he never saw the Board of Ethics opinion and did not analyze what the Board of Ethics opinion did. Again, the document is general principles. And they then all reaffirmed, all three, that the document was created outside of NYCOM. And again, they believe it was drafted by you, Mr. Mayor, though it doesn't say that on it. I'm so puzzled because three people told me that, and you have said something completely different. And I originally thought that you would just clarify and say, yeah, these are my notes, and I put the heading, and August 2nd was the date when I finalized my notes. And no, it's not a NYCOM letterhead because it isn't authored by NYCOM. And I thought you would just clarify that because that would be the appropriate thing to do, and the community should know that. And it's fine for you to have your opinion, and it's fine for those concepts to be out there in the ether, and we should all look at them and consider them, and they're important. But people need to know what that document source is, and what you're saying is so opposite of what three officers of NYCOM told me in conversations yesterday and today. Our community has suffered so much through this entire ordeal, and it's unfortunate. And I understand that all of you are feeling aggrieved and concerned and upset, and I understand that, and that's fine. But we cannot continue to have things come from this dais that are adding injury and insult to our community. We've suffered enough, and that's just utterly deceptive, or there's some massive misunderstanding here. But that's just very, very confusing to have had a conversation with NYCOM where they say, no, this is not our document. And you're sitting here saying that they drafted the document. I'm stunned. I don't know what to do with that. I'm really quite surprised.
Okay, I understand your surprise. The document, I sent the document to NICOM along with other documents. They changed what they wanted to change, and they left that document in the form that you see it. So that they say it's not their document is something that I don't understand, because they were given the document to change if there was anything in it that they wished to change.
Did they make any changes?
They made no changes.
So you gave them a document and said,
I gave them a couple of documents.
this document, you gave them this document.
I gave them that document.
You asked them if you want to change it, and they gave you no change.
I gave them our, Jerry, please sit down. I gave them our statement, and they made some changes in our statement, and they made no changes in the guidance.
The guidance that you prepared.
The guidance that I drafted, that I sent to them for approval.
You wrote it.
I wrote it. They approved it.
It's not their document. So John Mancini and Wade Beltrano and Peter Baines were all correct that this is not a document that they authored.
I don't know how to answer that since they approved it.
Well,
and they had the ability to change it as they changed the other document.
I
that was
approved
sent to them.
resolutions this evening that I did not author. If I authored those resolutions, I might have written them differently, but I approved them, I voted on them, they were okay with me. It's very different from being the author.
I think I'm going to have to go back to NICOM, obviously, and speak to them about what you heard from them as opposed to what was done.
Josh, all of this information that you have sent to them, I assume to the extent it is written, that is foilable, and that should, I believe, should be on, basically it should be on the city's website. All of the communications you've had with them in writing. What you spoke to them about, of course, could be something different. We have no control over that. Would you please commit to put on the city website copies of all written documents you've had with NICOM so that the city can make an independent judgment? Because what we've just heard here is absolutely damning, Josh.
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Obviously, I disagree, and I will put both documents on the city website.
No, I don't want both documents. I want every single piece of paper that you sent to NICOM suggesting things. Those are city records.
There are only two pieces of paper, Jerry.
If that's the case, then just put the two pieces on. There may well be people who believe you.
Just since we're on this topic, I just want to say I'm also very happy that the lawsuit has been dismissed. I look forward to working with my colleagues, not as the gang of four, but as a gang of seven. I think we've all been through a lot with this, and I think it's time that we all start working together, either independently but not in factions. The public will understand that this sad situation has passed when they see from this dais everybody working together, and that includes communicating with each other, all of us, between meetings. I think there's been a real cost to the city, not just from this litigation, but I think from the functioning of the city council. And so I'm very happy, and I'm very confident that that we're going to put this in the past and we'll be able to move forward. I do want to say one thing about the Board of Ethics members, Beth Matthews, Ted Dunn, and Ted Stein. in my view, you're an example to all the citizens of Rye of what true public service is. And it's not just when it's easy, but when it's very hard. They've showed us the importance of character and principles, and because of their standing up in this unfortunate situation, people looking for advice from the Board of Ethics can have no doubt about the credibility of the Board of Ethics and their independence. I think they've done a really valuable public service. I know not everyone up here agrees with that, but that's what I think, and I thank them a lot for doing what they've done. Again, I think the challenge for all of us now that this is over is to join together and start working together again. And so I pledge that I'll do my best to work with everybody, and I'll also say that perhaps I've made mistakes along the way. I think we all have, and I think it's time for everybody to move forward. So I just wanted to make that statement.
And I just wanted to correct you, Bill, because the lawsuit was not dismissed. A judge did not dismiss it. We withdrew it.
Well, it's withdrawn,
Yeah,
right.
it's withdrawn. It's not dismissed. That is a very different, insignificant meaning.
I wasn't.
Well, you slipped, but I'm telling you, it has a very significant meaning.
You have certainly withdrawn your lawsuit. So
Yes.
Let's not confuse that it was dismissed. It was withdrawn by you all.
It was not dismissed.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
I want
You're
to
welcome.
wholeheartedly second everything Bill Henderson said about the Board of Ethics and thank them. And that's a big ditto on his comments there. And I hope we can turn the page and draw a line today and say from this day forward, we also put this behind us and look ahead. We saw a very impressive capital improvement plan. There was a lot of good work that went into that, and there was a lot of good strategy that went into that long before I ever got on this council. Many of the people who were involved in supporting that, from our staff to our fellow council members here who have been serving for many more years than I, went into that. There's a lot of good here, and I hope we can focus on the good in the future and move ahead and do the good work that we were all elected to do, and put this mess behind us.
I wanted to say literally one thing. Thank you for withdrawing the lawsuit.